I collected these stories from people who still wake up in the middle of the night, remembering small details that do not belong to the ordinary world. And if you listen closely, you might feel the chill of a place you thought was safe becoming unknowable. A young woman named Mara moved into a cheap apartment on the third floor of a building that smelled faintly of old coffee and floor polish. She liked it because the rent was low, and the landlord, an elderly man who kept a stack of yellowed keys behind the counter, never asked many questions. The first night she moved in, she noticed the hallway light flicker once as if to say hello and then die. And she told herself that was city life, that the wiring was old, that nothing more should be read into a quick blackout. At 2 in the morning, after boxes had been pushed into corners and the television murmured a late-night cooking show, she woke up with the sensation of someone watching the edge of her bed. She told herself it was the boxes, the settling of a new place, and fell back asleep. The next morning, she found an envelope slid partially under her door. There was no name on it, only a single Polaroid, a picture taken from the ceiling corner of her empty living room, the lamp she had bought still in its plastic and the television glowing the pale light from the cooking show. She checked the door and the locks, nothing broken, no sign of entry. She told herself the landlord must have a master key for emergencies and dismissed the thought, but that afternoon the man at the counter said casually, "We keep an eye out." Mara laughed, but later, going through the boxes, she found another Polaroid taped to the inside of a moving box lid, this one of her sleeping on the couch, the camera angle slightly lower, close enough to show a curl of hair on her forehead. Her laughter faltered into a slow tightness in her chest she couldn't name. That night she put a chair beneath the peephole, positioned it so she could see the whole hallway through the small circular glass, and waited. Hours passed. The building's heating grunted in cycles. Footsteps above creaked like old wood. A distant car alarm stitched itself to the city hum. At 1:40 a.m., she saw a shadow in the stairwell. No shape, just the suggestion of movement underneath the landing light. And something slid quietly along the floor toward her door. It did not knock. The envelope under her door slid again, lighter this time, as if removed and replaced. And for a moment, the film of fear that had been gathering in her chest loosened into a different recognition. She was being watched not by a person, but by a pattern, by a habit that slid into the world while no one was consciously looking. She called the landlord, but the line clicked and went dead. She waited until the sun was smeared pale across the buildings and then opened the door with a hand trembling so much she had to steady it with the other. The hallway was exactly as it had been. Scuffed paint, a chill, the same bitter coffee smell. No footprints, no one. She moved out within a week. In the box of things she packed, there was another Polaroid she had never seen, folded into the sleeve of a sweater, a picture of the stairwell taken from a low angle, the date written in shaky blue ink, the day before she moved in. The landlord denied knowing anything, though Mara sometimes swore she caught him at the counter, looking at her when she passed, like a man who had read an unfinished book and could not help but peek at the last page. She never returned to collect the deposit, and she keeps the Polaroids in a drawer, because she tells herself it's better to hold something small and weird than to try and forget and let it swell into something with a mouth. A delivery driver named Luis had driven for years and learned the strange rhythm of neighborhoods. The late-night apartment complexes that smelled of fried food, the gated cul-de-sacs where no one answered their door, the dead-end roads that folded into dark fields. One night he took a run that started normal enough. A late grocery drop, a small town outside the city, the GPS chirping dutifully. The house was set back from the road behind tall hedges, and the client had left a note. "Leave on porch." Rain had been coming in sheets all day, and the porch light was a soft, watery halo. He set the bags down and felt the rain in his collar, the tires crunching the gravel as he backed out. But as he turned the corner, the GPS recalculated and told him to turn back. It kept repeating the same set of instructions. as if insisting he return. And when he glanced in his rear view, he saw the porch light was on again, though he had watched it go out. The street behind him stretched into black, and the hedges seemed to hedge around the house like a mouth closing. He told himself to keep going, to not be foolish, but the map kept whispering, and by the time he pulled up again, there was a woman on the porch that he had not seen before. Wrapped in a towel, hair slicked into a wet halo, eyes like pennies in a dark socket. She held up a single finger as if asking him to wait. He set the bags down and handed them over, then reached into his pocket for the receipt, because that is the kind of habit a man does when his hands are cold. The woman took the paper without a word, folded it carefully, and put it into an envelope. She smiled, and the smile was the kind that stops a driver from speaking. It suggested someone had seen too many private things and had folded them into a polite action. Luis left and told himself nothing had happened. But the next stop, he made the radio in his truck that had been dead for months burst into static, and a voice, half a mumble, half a child's whisper, said, "Did you forget something?" The sound came from nowhere he could trace. When he checked the bag from the porch at the end of his shift, he found the receipt had been slid into the same envelope, and inside was a scrap of paper with the words written in a child's hand. "Don't forget the light." He has not worked that route since. A man named Aaron lived in a small town where summer stretched long and the nights smelled like cut grass. He kept his childhood fishing rod in a corner of his garage, and like any person who enjoys small rituals, he would take an evening walk when the sky softened and the houses dimmed. One late August, a neighbor's porch light remained stubbornly on, a dull beacon that suggested someone had a reason to stay awake. The neighbor, an elderly woman with a tendency to plant sunflowers in odd places, had recently moved into a care facility, and the house should have been empty. Aaron's curiosity pulled him toward the light, as if it were a loose thread of a memory he needed to find. He stepped onto the neighbor's path, half intending to admire the porch garden, and the light shifted, not physically, but as if the focus of the world had been adjusted to include him. On the steps lay a child's shoe, one small sneaker, muddy and oddly out of place. He picked it up, and the shoe had a strange weight to it, like a secret. He set it on the porch railing and thought of the woman and the care facility and imagined she had left it behind. The next morning he returned to see if someone had claimed it, but the shoe was gone, and there was a note pinned to the porch post with a rusty nail. "We keep what is forgotten." The note did not look recent, but it smelled faintly of tobacco and warmth. The sort of smell that presses into the weave of a page and never leaves. That night, he dreamed a hallway of the house stretched and folded like a map, the rooms opening onto other rooms that had never existed in the blueprints. And when he woke, the clock told him it was 1:40 a.m. He told himself that time was a silly detail, but over the next weeks, he found small things where they should not be. A child's drawing tucked beneath his doorstep, a single pat of butter wrapped in paper on his porch, a photograph of the town's main street on a rainy afternoon with a figure standing under an umbrella that resembled him. Each item seemed to be saying the same thing in different voices. Remember the places you think you left. Attend to the margin of your life. He tried to ignore it until one evening he found his own house on the town's lost property list, a bureaucratic scrap that suggested someone in an office had misplaced his address years ago. He took the paper to the municipal building, and the clerk looked at it, blinked, and said, "We keep what is forgotten." The phrase sat in Aaron's mouth like a stone. He left town for a week and told himself absence would reset the pattern, but when he returned, there were footprints in his garden that led to the porch and then vanished in a neat, deliberate way. He set up a camera more for comfort than evidence, a little device that would show him the world when he was not watching. The first morning, the footage showed a slow, careful rearrangement of the garden. A toy truck nudged beneath the hydrangeas. A chair turned slightly to the left. The door left ajar as if someone had wanted to make an exit but never quite managed it. The timestamp read 1:40 a.m. He sold the house a month later to someone who liked old things and small towns and left with his fish rod. People asked him why he moved, and he told them the truth in a casual way. The town changed. He still remembers the shoes and the note. And sometimes at night, when the world outside his window is perfect with nothing to demand attention, he hears the soft sound of a page being turned as if someone is cataloging his life in another room. There is a story of two friends who took a job cleaning an abandoned hotel on the edge of a lakeside town, a building that smelled of damp curtains and the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. They wanted the extra money and the work was honest. Mop the long carpets, wipe down the grand staircase, empty the ashtrays that no longer smoked. On their third night, the power cut out in a way that was not the city's fault. The breakers above their heads hummed and then went dead, and they lit candles in the lobby, the tiny flames making the gilt on the banisters gleam like teeth. One of the friends, Jenna, had a habit of humming without realizing it. A small, nervous song she would let drift around if the silence grew too heavy. They found in the dining room a long table set immaculately with cloth napkins, plates, everything arranged as if for a banquet that had been halted mid-course. On the top of each plate lay a small note, folded in a way that suggested hands practiced in this movement. The notes held only a single word: stay. Jenna laughed, thinking it a prank by the cleaning crew who perhaps were less honest than they claimed. Her friend did not laugh. His face matched the room in its abrupt seriousness. They gathered the notes and dumped them into a trash bin. But when they returned to the lobby to light more candles, the notes were back at each plate with new handwriting added in the margins. We remember. We wait. They left the building and walked down to the lake and sat on the pier until dawn, where the water slid and sighed. The hotel from across the water looked asleep and betrayed nothing. But when a breeze stirred the surface of the lake, it seemed to pull at the hotel's curtains like fingers. They went back for a last check and found the keys to the ballroom lying on the staircase, polished and warm as if someone had been holding them. They locked up the job without finishing, and they never returned. But months later, a passing trucker said the hotel had been welcoming guests again, though the town had banned that practice years ago. The driver said he could see the faint outline of figures through the lobby windows, moving slowly like actors on a stage. The cleanup crew who had returned later reported that the plates and napkins had never been disturbed, yet the notes had multiplied, tucked into drawers, taped to bed frames, slipped under pillows. The handwriting changed, sometimes a child's loop, sometimes a precise clerk's scrawl, but the message never varied. We keep what is forgotten. If there is a common thread in these stories, it is not a monster you can point a flashlight at, nor a boogeyman with teeth. It is something more domestic and therefore more dangerous. The sense that neglect forms patterns, that places and objects collect attention like static, and that someone, something, comes to take the unattended moments and arrange them into a patient archive. People are haunted not by a spectacular break in the world, but by the small, persistent misalignments of ordinary life. A light that refuses to go out, a photograph that appears at the edge of your desk, a voice in the static that asks if you have forgotten anything. These tales do not promise a final reveal. They end with the knowing that certain hours, 1:40 a.m. in 3 different accounts, have a shape, that the mundane becomes porous if left unminded, that memory and place are not as separate as we think. If you take anything away from this, let it be a small, sensible thing. Pay attention to the little things you leave undone, to the small lights you fail to turn off, to the notes you tuck into drawers and never revisit. That does not guarantee safety, but it asks for a simple courtesy in a world that seems to keep its own ledger. And if one night you wake to find a Polaroid on your floor, or a child's shoe on your porch, or a note folded atop your plate, do what the people in these stories did not always do. Look once, catalog it, and answer quietly, I remember.